does not. Of course it does not. Let me talk a little local news here because I am broadcasting live from the city of Cincinnati. I realize that I'm moving kind of fast, and we've talked about several things here, and I want you to stay with me because there's a lot of things that we need to discuss. And each and every single day, I want to spend some time talking about what is happening locally in the city of Cincinnati. I want this to be a platform where we can talk, a new platform where we can talk, we can interact, we can share information about what's going on in the city. And, it's just a connection between myself and you and my guest and what we're doing now. But there's a couple things in the city that we need to talk about. Number one, I'm reading that the Kroger company is going to start selling the antidote for heroin overdoses. I was on YouTube just the other day. I believe I was on, I think I was on the World Star channel on YouTube. And someone had posted a video of a white woman. I think she was like in her mid-20s. And they brought her back to life. You see the whole thing. I mean, she is out of it, unconscious, clinging on to life. Her spirit might have been left her body, and they're working on her, trying to resuscitate her. And they actually do it near the end of the video. And you hear somebody say, girl, you need to stop doing that ish. And that person is absolutely right. But think about it. Now the Kroger company is going to sell the antidote for heroin overdoses. And for the folks out there who have said many over the years, they said, look at the difference between our society and the way that they're reacting to the heroin epidemic and the way America reacted to the crack cocaine epidemic. It's completely different, isn't it? It just seems like there's more sympathy around heroin. There's more understanding around heroin, and there's not a rush to automatically criminalize those individuals. You don't see that. I remember, because I lived through it. I was a young dude, but I remember there was a lot in the media about crack babies and crack mothers. It made it seem like the people who were on these drugs were very, very irresponsible. People were going to jail. There were crackdowns. There really wasn't a whole lot of sympathy and empathy. However, as it relates to heroin, it seems different. And I can't figure out what it is. Is it that the face of heroin addiction is different than the face of crack cocaine addiction? I mean, one was white, and the other was black, respectively. Or is it that because of the way the country handled the crack cocaine addiction explosion, and we realized we made so many mistakes, that now with heroin, the country officials are trying to do better. Like they've learned that automatically casting everybody as a criminal isn't necessarily going to stop, this drug epidemic. Maybe it's that. Some people believe that it's just racial. But tell me what you think. And what do you think about the fact that the Kroger company is now going to start selling Narcan without a prescription? And they're going to start doing it in its pharmacies in Ohio and northern Kentucky. From what I'm reading, the drug, which is often carried by emergency personnel, is currently only available in 27 state pharmacies without a prescription. And Kroger's announcement follows the one made earlier this month by the drugstore CVS. So now Kroger and CVS are going to begin selling Narcan in their stores in Ohio next month. That's next month if you live in Ohio. How do you feel about that? Is that going to change your shopping experience when you go to the drugstore? Are you going to be standing in line with these dog heads geeking? I mean, what does that mean exactly? Does that mean now that dog heads, and that's what they call heroin, dog? And much like people who was on crack, they call them crack heads. They call them dog heads. They love that dog. From what I understand, it's an incredible business, too. You can make a lot of money. You can make a lot of money in a short amount of time. And I know for a fact that there's people listening who, and again, you tell me if I'm wrong about this, but I know for a fact that there's people in Cincinnati, and I've talked to these folks over the years, who walk outside, you're trying to get ready for work or whatever, you see your street's been taken over completely. All kind of strange cars pulling up. You got people serving people on your street. And it seems like the authorities can't do anything about it because they operate so slowly. I get it. I'm not blaming them. I'm just saying that, in your opinion, is this the right move by CVS and the Kroger drugstores? I mean, what's the difference between this? Because I remember years ago, you had the question about drug use, like intravenous drug use, and that's where people like sharing needles and things like that. Was okay. Well, we can't have needle exchange programs because needle exchange programs are a way of promoting drug use. Do you believe that this move by Ohio drugstores is tacitly promoting the heroin drug use? I mean, you can buy it over the counter. Must be okay. Or, and again, I've never taken heroin. I don't know anybody directly could associate me that I know of that's taking heroin. So I'll be honest with you. Perhaps I don't have all the details on that kind of drug and that addiction. If you do, share it with me. I'll read your comments. But my number one question is, okay, I'm a Kroger shopper. I shop at CVS. Probably I'm in those stores at least 2 or 3 times, both of them, right? Respectively, I'm in those stores 2 or 3 times a month. So next month, when I'm in line and I'm in Kroger and I'm in CVS, is the store going to be overrun by dog heads? What kind of shopping experience is that? Here's another question, and I want to get your honest thoughts about this. Kroger store and also CVS in the state of Ohio have decided to start selling Narcan without a prescription, okay? And we all know what that's used for. That's used for folks who, they might have OD'd on heroin, might bring them back. Okay, great. We should save as many lives as possible. However, how many times do we have to go through this scenario locally where EMS services arrive to a scene, they resuscitate a heroin addict, and then 2 or 3 hours, 5 or 6 hours later, they call right back to another scene or the same scene to resuscitate that same heroin addict? How many times do we have to go through that? Do you believe that this move by Kroger and also CVS to start selling Narcan in their drugstores without a prescription, is that profit? Is that just, are they taking advantage of a situation? Or, in your opinion, are they providing a necessary service? I want to get your thoughts. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think. Is this going to help or hurt local efforts to try to stop and dissuade and push people away from a heroin addiction? You tell me. Tonika writes, Nate, maybe because of all the heroin ODers, they find some of the bathrooms at Kroger. Real talk. Could be. Could be. So now when I go to Kroger, on top of everything else, or if I'm going to the pharmacy at Kroger or the pharmacy at CVS, on top of everything else, now I got to negotiate my way with these heroin addicts? Thanks a lot. And again, I'm on the fence here. On one hand, I feel like, hey, we should do whatever we can to preserve life. These people are dealing with an addiction, and I get it. On the other hand, I'm thinking, is this a tacit endorsement? James writes, they can get Narcan, we get mandatory minimums. There's some truth in that. There's some truth in that. But tell me what you think. Narcan, we live in the last days. Now you can get it without a prescription. Why so easy access? Who's going to be purchasing this? So basically, if I'm a dog head and I've already OD'd, right, then me and my buddies can go get some Narcan, and one of us can be like the designated Narcan holder. Okay, you can't get as high as us. And if something happened, boom, you can bring us back to life, and we can keep doing this vicious circle over and over and over and over again. That makes sense to you? Where is the heroin coming from, ladies and gentlemen? What methods are the heroin pushers using to bring it into our city? I mean, who is the heroin kingpin of Ohio? Who's the heroin kingpin of Hamilton County? Who is the heroin kingpin of Cincinnati? I remember a member of City Council, Charlie Winburn, and I thought this was a fantastically bad idea. But last year he came up with an idea in which he said that he wanted to, and again it went nowhere, he said he wanted to get a list and target the top 100, bad teenagers, right, in the city of Cincinnati so we can all feel safer when we go to events. My question is, who's the top heroin dealers? I'm sick and tired of seeing CPD rolling down on these low-level guys. Who's the middleman? Who are the top level guys? I mean, these are the questions as a citizen in Cincinnati that I really want to know. But what about you? What about you? B writes, Nate, just like the rest of corporate America and generally, the number one goal of progress to make money, and that's, in my opinion, what these companies are after. So B feels like the Kroger company and also CVS are after just profits. You know, I might put in a call and see if we can talk to somebody at both of those fine establishments just to pick their brain, because I would like to know, is it a profit motive? I mean, they're in business to make profit, I get it. But is it wrong? I mean, you know that here in the tri-state that people are seriously dealing with a serious drug problem. Serious. So now you want to start selling Narcan? I'm sure they ran the numbers on it. I'm sure it makes sense to them on some levels. And I'm sure it goes back to money. Pat writes, Nate, would they have to pay out of pocket, or is this being covered by insurance? A lot of copay are very high for specialty meds. Good question. It's a very good question. Monique writes, of course it's about profit, in my opinion. It's a Band-Aid on the issue. They need rehab. They do. They totally do. Let's go back here. John writes, America is all about sympathy as long as there is profit to it. You're right about that. If it makes money, it makes sense all day long. And in some spaces, you got people dealing with situations where it makes money and people still don't want to deal with you. But these are the days and times we live in. Here's my opinion. My opinion is I just feel like they need to be careful. As a consumer, what you're telling me now is that these drugstores potentially could be even more of a magnet for these heroin addicts. I don't want to be around any heroin addict because they're ODing in their cars now. They're ODing with kids in the back seat. I mean, that's a powerful addiction. Somebody's willing to drive, pass out with their kids in the back seat, and then go back and do it all over again. Okay, I sympathize. Should we be tougher with heroin addicts like we were with the crack cocaine addicts? Should politicians be pushing more of and make this more of a criminal offense? I mean, you tell me. You tell me. I want to get your thoughts about it. And the wonderful thing, if you've never done it before, is that if you are chatting with me, you can also interact with the other folks who are in the chat room as well. Dale writes, it's the government, Nate. That's the top dog heroin dealer. Well, I mean, let's be honest here. Some folks might not like it. They might feel uncomfortable, but the reality is that the United States government, I mean, not all of it, not everyone who works for the government, but elements that were connected with the United States government certainly played a role in the explosion of crack cocaine that decimated so many black neighborhoods, right? And think about how that works. And everybody knows the story of Freeway Ricky, right? Yeah, Freeway Ricky. He actually had connects in the city of Cincinnati, across the nation, and Cincinnati is one of the jump-off spots. I have talked to people in this city that knew Freeway Ricky and worked with him back in the day. So you flood the block with all these drugs. People flock to it because they want to eat, they want to live a good life, they want to have good things. And then the politicians come in and criminalize everything and lock those people up. And that's what happened. And that's the crack cocaine, just tragedy. It's tragedy. Damien writes, just like you have politicians with gay children, you have politicians with children hooked on heroin. So the problem will be looked into. We'll see. That's a damn shame. It's like it's not a problem until it happens to somebody who's got some kind of influence. That's how this country is. That's how this country is. What it was about AIDS. You know, nobody really cared about it until people realized, like, wait a minute, you mean not gay people are getting AIDS? Yeah. Then it was a problem. When AIDS hit the suburbs, we got to do something about it. Get the CDC, that's the Center for Disease Control. Get them on top of it. That's how the game works. Same thing with drugs. You know, as long as the drugs were considered a black problem or an urban city problem, well, you know what they do? They just lock the urban city down.